Hello and welcome back to another edition of What I Wish I Knew Before I Read a Particular and Taught a Particular Great Book. The book we're dealing with today is Song of Roland, and I can't tell you who the author is because no one knows who the author is. But I will say this, you should use the Dorothy Sayers translation. Sayers is spelled S-A-Y-E-R-S. Dorothy Sayers is a brilliant Christian woman who wrote some fantastic murder mysteries, who also translated Dante's Divine Comedy, and who wrote a fantastic meditative work called The Mind of the Maker. So don't sleep on Dorothy Sayers. But in any case, let me tell you real quick why you should read Song of Roland. Number one, it's a fantastic story. Anyone who enjoys a good story is going to enjoy this particular tale. More importantly, it's going to contextualize some things for your students and for you. Primarily, and I don't think this can be overstated, primarily with regard to chivalry. As Christians, we hear that word chivalry and we think, absolutely, Christian men should open the door for women. Christian men should look out for and protect women. What's wrong with chivalry? I'm going to suggest there's a great deal wrong with chivalry as we go forward in this conversation. But if you want to grasp what the chivalric code looks like in action, this is the book for you. And as you grasp it, you will then begin to understand the power of another great book that we're going to talk about later, Don Quixote by Cervantes. I believe that Don Quixote is one of the three greatest books ever written and has a profound influence on us even today as moderns. And you will not laugh with Don Quixote until you have read Song of Roland and some of the other romantic works that preceded Don Quixote. Also, this helps you contextualize the battle between Christianity and Islam. You may dimly, somewhere in the back of your mind, realize that the Muslim armies were making their way across North Africa, were jumping across the Strait of Gibraltar into Spain, that this was a historic moment, and more than a moment, a centuries-long tension between the Roman Catholic Church and Islam. It helps me, I'm a visual guy, it helps me to think this battle took place in the Pyrenees, in this mountain range between Spain and France. This is a real thing that happened in history. Not that this story describes much reality. So now we'll talk about what I wish I knew before I taught Song of Roland, and hopefully this will help you see what I'm talking about with regard to chivalry and historic context. Number one, a couple small things to begin with. No one knows who wrote Song of Roland. It definitely is the work of one author. As you read this, you will see the characters remain who they are from beginning to end. The tension remains what it is from beginning to end. Definitely the work of one author, even if we don't know who wrote it. We should also say real fast, this was confusing to me and some of my students. Charlemagne appears in this story because this story purports to recount an entire battle that happened in the Pyrenees in 778 AD. So Charlemagne is around 40 years old at that time. In the story that you're reading, he's 200 years old and still so superhuman that he can receive a blow with a sword that splits his helmet, and then an angel just shows up and says to him, hey, stop goofing around, and he then finishes the battle and leads his men to victory. So not a real story, but based on the real event that happened in 778 AD. And Charlemagne in the poem is referred to both as Charles and as Carlon, Carlon. So it's a little easy to lose your footing if you don't recognize that going into the poem. We should also say, and this is perhaps the strangest thing, you're going to read this and think that Roland's best friend, Oliver, is the hero of the poem. And I'm here to tell you that Roland is the hero of the poem. As a practical person, when you read this story and it unfolds, all of your emotions are going to side with Oliver, and the author thinks you're wrong. So we have to say that out loud. Roland and Oliver are leading a rear guard action in the mountains. Most of the army of Charlemagne's army is crossing over the Pyrenees into France, but Roland and Oliver are going to protect the rear of the army. So they take a few men with them and hang back. And it seems that Oliver is very practical and wise, because once he realizes that there is a pursuit by the Muslim army, he climbs a hill, counts the Muslim army, and realizes there is no way that their little teeny tiny rearguard action is going to be able to stop the Muslim army. So he wisely says to Roland, "Hey, Roland, blow your war horn and summon back Charlemagne's army so that these two armies can fight and we have a chance of victory." Seems very sensible. You and I hear that and we go, yeah, that's just good military strategy. Roland's response clues you in to what chivalry has to say to this. Roland says two things to Oliver. First, he says, if he blew his horn, his fame would suffer scorn. And then he says to Oliver, that living man should say he saw me go, blowing of horns for any Paynim foe. Paynim refers to Muslim. Ne'er shall my kindred be put to such reproach. So this is a matter of chivalry. Yes, it's practical to blow the horn and summon the rest of your army, but fame, honor, the code requires that you don't blow the horn, which is pronouncing a death sentence to this little squadron that Roland and Oliver are leading. So as moderns, we read that and we think, that's ridiculous. Oliver's definitely the hero. He saw clearly. He knew what to do. If he'd been listened to, the poem would end a different way. All true, but the hero of the Song of Roland is not Oliver. The hero of the Song of Roland is Roland. In this view, honor matters more even than the lives of your men. This is one of the beefs that I have with chivalry. Chivalry is basically, the chivalric code in this time is basically a secret handshake to say to other well-born gentlemen, hey, we're in the same club. We abide by the same code. We're not like those peasants, the cobblers, or the farmers. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We belong together. And this code then began to supersede even the wisdom of Scripture, right? Even the clear teaching of the Bible. Nowhere in the Bible do we find this idea that we need to preserve classes in a hard and fast way. In fact, the Bible treats all men as equally under judgment, all men as being made in the image of God, and yet instead the code of chivalry insists on the better-born men being better and having honor and having fame because they adhere to this code. So there's a ridiculousness to the Song of Roland that you cannot escape. Your students will be furious to learn that Oliver is not the hero. Even at the end, spoiler alert, if you want to turn this off now. Even at the end, when both Roland and Oliver are vanquished, and one of the last things Oliver says to Roland, I'm paraphrasing here, is, "You dummy, you should have blown the horn. If we survive this, I will never let you date my sister." Really and truly, he says that in different words. Every modern goes, yeah, that's right. Roland was dumb, Oliver was smart, and yeah, Oliver should be mad at Roland that he's dying right now at the hands of this Muslim horde. But Roland is the hero of the Song of Roland. And then just to finish this very quickly, this is what makes Don Quixote brilliant, because in the story of the Don, he is besotted by romantic books exactly like Song of Roland. And because he believes that's the way reality works, he goes off into the real world and acts in a way that is totally disjointed from reality. What makes Don Quixote funny is how ridiculous stories like Song of Roland are. So we have to be very clear on that. You're not going to appreciate Don Quixote unless you've wrestled with Song of Roland, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, some of the stories of the Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur. You're not going to really appreciate Don Quixote until then. And I just have to say this quickly, and I know that I'm running out of time. Look for opportunities to talk with your students about the idea of freedom of religion. You're going to notice, and your students are going to notice in this story, that when Muslim soldiers are captured by Charlemagne, they have two choices. They can convert to Christianity or they can be put to death. That's it. Those are their options. And as Americans who enjoy freedom of religion, we go, this is not the way to approach evangelism. Those conversions are probably not true conversions. We have all kinds of problems with this. Good. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about this wonderful idea of freedom of religion that doesn't really even show up in history until around Oliver Cromwell and Roger Williams. There's just a long time before Christians recognize freedom of conscience. And that's a good thing to talk with your students about. So very fruitful to read Song of Roland. Highly recommend it. You're going to be dumbfounded that Roland is the hero, but he is, and we need to respond to that.